Testing my audio for last time. Okay, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get started here with the AMA. Like I said, it's kind of a weird time on a Sunday, so I don't expect that too many people to roll in, but that's fine because I should have it recorded and I'll upload it to YouTube in 1 or 2 days for those of you that cannot attend, so you guys can listen to it in replay, right? So. We try to keep this AMA relatively quick and short, between 30 45 minutes. I'm gonna first start with, I guess, well, I'm gonna split this AMA into kind of three segments. One is like to recap what was accomplished during Q1, which was, I believe, the last time we did AMA. And then I'm gonna move forward to kind of the next steps, and what you can expect from us during Q2 and Q3. And then I'm gonna top it off with, a question segment where I'll first answer the amount of questions that were, pre-submitted, and then I'll open it up to additional questions from the guys who are listening to this right now. So here we go. So to begin with, a lot was accomplished during Q1, right, on the product side. So first, obviously, we launched the Lush Exchange. During Q1, we were still before the crypto market kind of died down, right? Because right now crypto is kind of the market's kind of like dead right now for altcoins. But during Q1, during the early stages of Q1, the kind of general kind of quote unquote narrative or hype that was going around with kind of AI agents, right? And so we built out a launchpad, tokenization launchpad called the Lush Exchange, to essentially tokenize AI influencers, right? And so we first launched it on Base. And then we ported that over to Solana, right? And so like that product, the Lush Exchange, I'll discuss later. I'll discuss kind of later in this AMA, kind of the three, like, I guess, the steps or the three tiers in like the supply chain, right? And so that would be like considered in like a tier 3 kind of product, right, on the monetization side, which I'll discuss later. But we rebranded the Lush Exchange to a Web2 kind of consumer-facing product with its own kind of more kind of Web2 appropriate name, with, for example, blush.app. And then we've been onboarding a couple of AI influencers, including this girl called Kayla, and then we got a couple others that were about to tokenize on that exchange as well. And so I think the exchange is like a long-term play and more taps into kind of the I guess the demand from the crypto side, right? Right now, obviously, the tokenization in general is like pretty much not in demand just due to the overall market conditions. But I think when the crypto market picks up again, the exchange itself, or blush.app, has the potential to do very well. And so right now, again, we built into it with the plan in mind of onboarding kind of non-crypto users to the Web3 space, right? And so, for example, integrating kind of fiat on-ramps, email logins, and such kind of features, so that normal kind of everyday kind of mom and pop users, which accounts for, I guess, like 95 to like 99% of the population, can benefit from the process of tokenization. And so that's kind of our thesis from the get-go of the project, and that we want to build crypto native crypto kind of projects, that in essence allow us to kind of bridge the gap to kind of the non-crypto audience, right? Because that's where the sustainable demand is going to come from, right? Crypto natives come and go in very volatile cycles, but if you can build products that can onboard and retain kind of non-crypto users, that's actually where the long-term kind of sustainable revenue comes from, right? So that's in essence the kind of thesis behind the Lush Exchange, or what you call now the blush.app, right? So after that was done, which took about 1 or 2 months of development time during late December and early January, we also onboarded a second OnlyFans model, right? So our first OnlyFans model that we're monetizing right now is kind of purely AI, right? So Cookie, as you can see on Twitter, her OnlyFans page is like doing on average about 10 15K a month, right? And so we also onboarded a human influencer. Her name is Olivia, and so we're actually running a second OnlyFans page for this kind of human influencer, right? And we wanted to do this because we wanted to test out the use case of not just a purely virtual influencer, but a human influencer that is essentially like modified, enhanced by our AI, right? Whether it be from generating content to chatting, etc. And so that's been up. The second OnlyFans page has been up for less than a month, so it's actually kind of quite early to tell what the results will be. But just from kind of preliminary data and revenue numbers, it seems like it's in line with, if not better than, our purely AI girl, right? Because there are some things that uh, human creators with this goes on the topic of ID verification of OnlyFans, and so there are some things where you can get away with humans influencers that you cannot do with AI influencers, right? And so like the fact that we have a human influencer that's able to comfortably show her face in all kind of scenarios, in theory allows that page to have greater monetization potential. And so that was number two on what was accomplished during Q1, right? Number one was the launch of Lush app, formerly called the Lush Exchange, and number two was just onboarding this second OF creator that we're all just managing right now. And so I guess I'll speak to this ties into the next kind of segment, which is kind of like what's coming next, right? So we've realized that our revenue on OF has been kind of like plateauing in the 10 to 15K range, and I'll discuss why that is later. But I think this also ties in the products that we need to ship out afterwards, which is on the kind of the marketing side, which I'll go into later, right? So in essence, we're essentially building like a vertically integrated influencer monetization kind of like agency or business, right? And so the products that we're essentially developing, whether it be the generative AI tooling or what I'll describe in a second, which is the kind of agentic marketing AI agent, is all kind of like tools that we need or use internally for ourselves, right? And this gives us kind of like a direction of what products to build, because we are in essence in this business itself, so we know exactly what problems need to be solved and what products need to be developed in order to solve those problems, right? So right now, I guess the biggest problem in this business, not just for us, but for all influencers and all OnlyFans agencies and OnlyFans creators, is simply the problem of driving traffic and attention to this influencer, right? Because right now we are going down the marketing path of paying for traffic, and that has like a diminishing return because you only pay for so much traffic. Uh, Promos, as they call it, before the effects of that start kind of like diminishing, right? You can't just do infinite promos because there's only like a limited pool of other creators and other pages that you can do promos on, right? So if you just keep continuously running promos, eventually you'll run out of actually pages where you can do promos, because there's, like I said, a limited pool of other creators, other influencers that are willing to allow you to promo yourself right on their page. And once you kind of tap into the audience, you can't just keep paying for promos on towards the same audience, right? Because over time, they'll just see the same person over and over again, which leads to diminishing returns on the promo expenses. And so right now, we really need to double down on the kind of traffic source of organic traffic, right, coming from social media. And this ties into, as I said and mentioned later, I'll discuss kind of the next kind of major product that we're going to develop internally, right? And so to sum that up, the one other thing obviously was the generative AI tooling, right, that we released, the SaaS product. That came out about a couple of weeks ago, right? You have basically the internal tooling that we ourselves use to, create and generate the content, right? Whether it be, training the model based on, an image set or a training set of, their content, right? For those of you who don't know how it works, how the training process works is that, I upload, 10 to 15 like training images, right, of the influencer in different poses, lighting, angles of the face, etc. And then our kind of training process can essentially train a custom model based on those images in about 5 to 10 minutes, right? And once that's done, you can essentially put that influencer in whatever kind of you can command the AI to generate content for the influencer, right? Whether it be you want the influencer to be sitting on the beach, standing in a bar, wearing an evening gown, etc., right? And so that kind of SaaS product was released 2 weeks ago, right? So the workflow of that was, you compile 10 to 15 images, you train that, model, and then you can generate kind of purely generative content. We haven't embedded video generation yet, like purely generative video generation yet in that tooling, but that's available in the other kind of functionality of that tool, which is a deepfake, right? So you can essentially what deepfake does is, you can input a image of another person, whether it be, like an image or even a video, right? And then based on your own kind of model, it can essentially, replace the face of the previous person with the face of your specific creator, right? Or your specific influencer. And so this combined with the generative AI content generation is essentially what we use internally, right? Now we have obviously like our own kind of training methods and our own kind of expertise in how do you kind of collect that training data. But in essence, that kind of advanced kind of generative AI tooling is what, us and pretty much every other kind of AI agency or AI kind of influencer uses to generate their social media content, right? Uh, but in essence, I think this goes to my theory of, I think ultimately, to be honest, the reason why we held off on releasing the generative AI tooling for so long, and we pretty much did this because obviously a lot of the community members wanted the advanced generative AI tooling, right? But in essence, I don't think the content generation tools will be a huge moneymaker inside the Lush ecosystem, simply because I think my thesis is that the foundational models, whether it be LLMs themselves, you're seeing with this with like deepfake, OpenAI, Gemini, and all these kind of different kind of LLMs come out, right? They're just undercutting each other on price, with ever more so expanding kind of functionality until you get to a point where the entire kind of foundational model layer is essentially commoditized, right? For example, like a year ago, like 1 million input tokens for ChatGPT was like, I don't know, like $10, right? Now you can get, 1 million input tokens for like 7 to 10 cents, right? With DeepSeek or Gemini. And I see the same thing happening in the generative AI space, right? With these kind of foundational models that are responsible for generating content, right? So LLMs generate like text responses, foundational models, you have similar foundational models in the generative AI space that are responsible for generating like images, videos, etc. Right? I see the same thing happening where the foundational models of these generative AI models tools will essentially get commoditized. So I don't think generating content is going to be a huge moneymaker, but a lot of the kind of community members requested it, so we know we spent a couple of weeks building that out, right? And so what I mean by commoditized is that a couple maybe like half a year ago to a year ago, there was like stable diffusion, a couple kind of image generating tools. You could get away with kind of building a wrapper on top of it, charging maybe like 5 cents, 10 cents per generation. But obviously, as more tools come out, now with like Flux and like ChatGPT has its own kind of image generator, it's just like the cost of generating content itself is going to drop to a point where it's like 0.001 per image, right? There's no way it can make money on a business. And I think that goes for AI as a whole, right? So in the age of AI, I think the value of the content itself will pretty much be like near worthless. And it's just all about like the value capture is primarily just going to be about the distribution of whatever AI generated content or products you want to push out there, right? And so again, like the product, this SaaS product is available for everyone to try. And it works great, obviously, right? Because we use it internally to build our own content. But just expect that it's not going to be a huge money maker, right? Because content generation going forward is just going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And so that segues kind of to the next point, right? Or the next segment of this entire AMA, which is, what are the next steps for the Lush project, right? And so obviously a couple of people have been asking about it, the AI influencer casino, right? And so we last week we sent out a couple of renderings of what the casino would look like. And again, like we're working in partnership with a major kind of casino developer. So obviously, like a lot of this is out of control, right? And so like based on what they're saying, the timeline for the full release of the casino will be towards the end of this, excuse me, or towards the end of this month, if not early next month, right? And so we already have like the rendering and the style and the concept down. Now also the URL, right? They bought that URL, but right now we just gotta like they're in the final kind of development sprint to compile everything and just put it out there, right? So expect like a timeline of end of this month, or if not next month. And so in essence, but like even with the kind of AI influencer casino, right? So the idea was that it was the thesis was like a merging of not just like an AI influencer casino, but like where so how for those of you that are not aware, how these online casinos normally work. For example, like Stake, right, which is like a casino that most everyone knows. They essentially, if you scroll through Twitter, you actually see this a lot in your feed, right? a lot of these posts, random meme posts or whatever posts, which you'll see like a steak logo, right, in the back or in like a corner of the in the content, right, whether it be on Instagram or Twitter. And what's actually happening is that Steak is actually paying these influencers, and I believe Drake has like a $50 million a year like partnership, crazy numbers, right? But the point is, the kind of current kind of go-to-market strategy for these online casinos is influencer sponsorships, right, and influencer endorsements. They essentially pay for eyeballs and attention by putting their brand on famous influencers pages, as well as content that could potentially go viral, right? And so like the thesis of the next step right now is like the influencer sponsored casino, right? The next step beyond that is the influencer owned and branded casino, right? And so like the thesis of this major casino operator is that now you may see, for example, Drake is sponsored by Steak, and he drives traffic to Steak, right? The next kind of step after that is that actually Drake owns like a casino that potentially is like a white label solution that's provided by Steak, right? And so that is the future that this casino operator is building towards. And the reason why the AI influencer is very important is because obviously if you partner with the human influencer, there's also like brand risk potentially. If I'm going to build out a casino infrastructure around a influencer, and this influencer decides not to continue with the with this partnership or whatever, then all the infrastructure that I built to basically bring this casino into operation is basically wasted, right? The reason why the AI influencer is very kind of important for the casino industry is because now that you have this influencer, you own the IP directly, or you at least know that this influencer, AI influencer, won't just randomly one day pick up its bags, not like renew a contract or whatever, right? So you have a much more kind of steady foundation on top of which to do the branding and to create the branding around an influencer, right? Because you have control over like the behavior and essentially the IP rights to this influencer, right? And so that's kind of the thesis of the kind of casino operator, and that's why he wanted partner with us to build these AI influencer casinos, right? First, based on Cookie or Anna, right? But like the ultimate vision is that like I don't know from a technology standpoint how he specifically will do this, but he tells me it's in the works and it's possible, right? So you have like Anna, Sarah, Emily, like Dave, etc., right? You have all these kind of different influencers. They funnel traffic from different sources, right? For example, Anna's Instagram page, Dave's Twitter page, etc., into the single casino, and this casino is able to detect where the traffic is coming from, and its user interface is like dynamic depending on where the traffic is coming from, right? For example, if you click on a link to the casino from Anna, the casino's design will be based on the images and like the obviously like the appearance of this girl Anna, right? Whereas if you come from Dave's traffic source on Twitter, this casino will be able to dynamically render a user interface that's based on Dave, right? So I don't know how technically he's able to do this, but like that's kind of the idea that we're building towards, right? It's like a chameleon. In a sense that the casino itself, the underlying infrastructure and the games are like basically all the same, built on his kind of white label solution. But like the user interface is kind of custom designed based on each kind of traffic source, each kind of influencer. Who's responsible for user acquisition? Yeah, I'll discuss that in a second. So like that is on the topic of the kind of AI influencer casino, right? And so this kind of I'll segue from this into our kind of next kind of major product release, right? And keep in mind, this is like again, this is like on the bleeding edge tech, right? This is so what we're developing internally is a like agentic or autonomous AI social media manager. And so the reason why we're developing this is that again, to the problem that any kind of influencer faces or any digital business faces these days is how do you generate traffic and how do you generate attention for your business or your influencer, right? Because at the end of the day, an influencer is simply just a business. And so it's like we've also experienced this in like internally, right? Our for example, our paid traffic is being capped at 10 to 15K a month. So we really got to double down on organic traffic. And this is where the AI agent in a social media manager comes into play, right? This is, like I believe if properly executed, this will be the biggest moneymaker by far inside the entire Lush ecosystem. But again, there's a lot of kind of technical challenges that need to be solved, and this is like bleeding edge technology, right? This isn't just like some BS quote unquote AI agent that you saw on crypto Twitter like during Q1, where it was just like a chat bot, just spilling out tweets and stuff. This is like, like imagine like an army of like, let's say you have this girl Anna, right? She has one page, right? She can only post, maybe a couple times a day. So like just in terms of volume, you're not going to get as nearly as much if you had, for example, 100 different Anna pages, all kind of targeting different geographies and all autonomously controlled by this AI, right? So like I can, for example, the idea of this kind of AI influencer, or sorry, AI agentic kind of social media manager is to be able to have kind of like control hundreds, if not thousands, of Anna accounts, right, or even Dave accounts that are all kind of autonomously not just kind of posting on social media, but interacting with users, following them, messaging them, liking their posts, etc., in order to ultimately all drive traffic to the kind of end destination, right? And so I think the reason why, if properly executed, this will be the biggest moneymaker, is that this is not just a problem for the specific for the OnlyFans industry, right? To kind of answer Jeremy's question, who's responsible for user acquisition for Anna's casino, right? It's Anna herself. It's her social media, right? And so this is a problem. Like user acquisition is a problem that every kind of sector, every kind of industry faces, right? How do you generate users for your product, right? Whether it be OnlyFans content or this casino, or even some random business, right? Online business, right? It's like the social media is very important. And so like I think where the 6 months ago this technology wasn't kind of developed, but now it's I think it's almost there to a point, if not fully ready, where you can essentially have spin up kind of autonomous AI agents that not just like taps into like Twitter's API to like bot out like a status tweet or whatever, but those like actual agents that actually can like roam like the browser and control like your internet browser, and like actually like behave as a human on these social media platforms, right? Because that's the thing, right? Like spinning up like 10,000 bots to spam social media is not like really novel, right? I'm sure like Indian farmers do this all the time. The thing that's actually novel about these kind of browser agents is that they can simulate user behavior, right, within the actual internet browser, and that makes them much harder to detect, right? That doesn't make them like impossible to detect, but it makes them kind of much more harder to detect because they're actually just simply mimicking human behavior at the end of the day, right? And so we're kind of really working hard on this internally to push this product out in Q2. And again, like even the beauty of like they always say like the best business or the best kind of startup is like where you're kind of building for yourselves and solving your own problems, right? Because if you solve your own problems, surely there are other people who have the same problem, right? So again, we personally have this own problem. How do we solve this problem or of like generating organic content on organic traffic on social media? And we believe that this is a solution to solve our own problem, right? If we can figure out how to solve our own problem, we can eventually package it into like a SaaS product that we can sell to other kind of agencies, other kind of influencers, right? And so that's kind of the plan there. And in the worst case scenario, and even if we have no external kind of customers, right, for this product, like the fact that we can like use it internally to generate traffic for our own influencers is all we need to be profitable, right? And so like that's why I said I believe like this, if properly executed, this will be like the biggest moneymaker by far of the Lush ecosystem, because this is like truly like real agentic AI, technology, right? And our plans, like I said, is to push it out in Q2. First, we obviously got to use it ourselves to obviously tinker out some bugs, because obviously in the beginning, I'm sure we'll get accounts on Instagram, for example, banned with like bot detection, faulty proxies, etc. So we got to like actually like solve those problems internally ourselves. But once we do, our plan is to package this into like a SaaS product that we can monetize externally. And so that's the plan for Q2. That's the main thing for main objective for Q2. And so this kind of is I guess let me just I guess explain the entire supply chain of our entire business, right? So because our goal, like I said from the very beginning, was to build a vertically integrated kind of supply chain. And so like a supply chain, for example, is like, let's say Tesla, right? Tesla supply chain is that, they go to Africa, they dig up the raw materials for the batteries. They also build a factory to assemble the raw material into a car, and then they also control the dealer network. They don't actually have your traditional dealers, but obviously they have like mall shops where they control the distribution of the actual kind of cars, right? And so like Tesla is a good example of like a vertical integration, right? They control the even like the mines where they get their lithium. Maybe they buy the lithium, but I'm sure they can actually have like ownership over mines where they actually extract the raw materials from steel, etc. Right? And so like instead of, for example, let's say like BMW or like or a kind of other kind of car manufacturers where they kind of potentially may outsource the manufacturing to other products, Tesla builds their own factories, right? Like their own kind of like assembly lines. They also control the dealer network, right? Which is actually very important, right? Like Ford and like GM, all these kind of car factories, they use the kind of traditional distribution strategy of outsourcing the distribution to kind of other kind of dealers. Whereas Tesla, you just walk into like a Tesla store, you like buy it online, and the car almost gets delivered to you like personally, right? So that's the power of vertical integration, because you control like the entire workflow, right? So if you port that kind of analogy over, what is the kind of supply chain for these AI influencers? What is the supply chain of Lush, right? So you start at the raw materials, which is the content generation, right? So the content generation step is the first step of the entire supply chain of the Lush ecosystem, right? And so the advanced kind of generative AI tooling that we just released 2 weeks ago kind of addresses that step of the supply chain, right? Now users can essentially use the Lush ecosystem, or like tap into the Lush ecosystem and to generate content for their influencers, right? That's step one. Step two is the agentic kind of social media manager that I was just discussing, right? How do you generate attention and drive traffic and leads to the influencers, whether it be the ones that we create internally or the other influencers that want to tap into our system, right? That is step two, right? Lead generation and attention generation, essentially. Step one is content generation. Step two is lead and attention generation. This is where the agentic kind of social media platforms come into play, right? Or the agentic social media manager comes into play, right? To address that second step of lead and attention generation. And the third and final step is actually the monetization, right? So the monetization, we actually have multiple kind of like channels already, or like distribution platforms already, right? Once you have that attention, right, you can either monetize it via a token issuance, right? This is what the Lush exchange is for, right? You can monetize it via OnlyFans, right? Selling the content. And also, obviously, our internal kind of Keeply, which is our AI-powered OnlyFans platform, right? So we actually have multiple products already in the distribution content monetization kind of step, right? Which is the third step. We have the generative AI tooling now, which is in the first step, which is the content generation. And the middle step and the second step is by far, I believe, the most important step, which is actually how to generate attention and achieve distribution for these influencers that are, generating the content, right? That's where the agentic kind of social media manager comes into play. And I think the reason why the agentic browser-based agent is so powerful, rather than just tapping into Instagram APIs, is one, it simulates human behavior, so it's like less likelihood of getting banned by these bot detection systems that all these kind of platforms employ, right? But two, the most important is that once you figure out, for example, how to run these kind of agents on Instagram, you're simply you're giving these agents instructions on how to navigate Instagram, right? It's not like, you're like, oh, tap this button and press this, connect to this API, send a request, right? It's like, once you figure out Instagram, you can easily, adapt those instructions to Twitter, for example, right? Because like if you go the route of just robotically connecting the API, then you have to build an entire kind of different infrastructure to tap into Twitter's API, for example, right? And so like I see a future where these agents ultimately, once they, for example, master one platform at a time, Instagram being the first, there's no reason why you cannot repurpose this AI agent to handle conversations directly on OnlyFans itself, right? Because OnlyFans doesn't have a publicly available API. And our goal has always been to automate the chatting and the conversation to OnlyFans. And so, like, what is the actual better workaround? It's actually build an agent that can go to OnlyFans just as a human can navigate to OnlyFans and just browse through the inboxes of this influencer and just message and reply to this conversation just as a human can, right? And so that's the power of these kind of browser agents. That there's much more kind of broader use cases than OnlyFans itself. So that in a sense covers kind of the next steps, right? So to kind of summarize, I first went over kind of the recap of what was accomplished in Q1, and then I discussed, the next steps. The next steps, the most important is obviously the agentic social media manager. Again, this is kind of bleeding edge tech, and there's a lot of technical issues, technical challenges I'm sure we'll encounter. But I think it's if, like I said, if properly executed, it will by far be the biggest moneymaker of the Lush ecosystem. And so let's move ahead now to step three, which is the questions, right? And so the first question that I compiled for my groups is, update on the traction and monetization of the two models that we're currently managing, right? I already discussed this. Our kind of our ANA, our original goal, right, is capped off at 1050K a month. And what is the user acquisition strategy? And again, this goes back to what I already discussed in the previous section, which is that we are currently encountering a problem that I'm sure other agencies, other influencers encounter themselves, right? Which is that if we go down the route of paid promotional traffic, we're capped at a ceiling of like 10 to 50K a month. And we really need to develop this agentic social media manager in order to solve our own problems so that we can, have this kind of organic social media as a user acquisition funnel. And that's in essence the actual like reason why we're building this out, because we need to solve this problem ourselves, right? And so to sum that answer up, right now we are monetizing to the tune of 10 to 50K a month for the model, which is fairly solid, right? But in order to get to 30K a month, 50K a month, and beyond, we really need to solve the problem of organic traffic. And there's, like I said, there's no reason why we can't kind of apply AI and agentic AI specifically to tackle that problem, right? I would love to have a view of the marketing plan for the next 6 months. Yeah, so like on the marketing side, we try to hire this this brand builder, this AI this brand builder, crypto kind of Web3 marketer. We gave him a go for like a month. Just wasn't what I was looking for. He was like trying to run paid ads, like launch NFT collections, and just like logically, strategically, did not make any sense for our use case. So we just let him go after like a 1 month trial, right? And so like for us, it's like obviously during this kind of crypto winter brand market, we got obviously we have to be really conservative about what we're spending cash on, right? But more important than that, like the marketing strategy need to make sense, right? We can't just go out and like trying to spend on ads, trying to mint NFT collections and like try to like onboard kind of KOLs because none of that's working right now. The only thing that's going to work going forward is just continuing to build product that can actually solve real world problems, right? The marketing plan for the next kind of 3 to 6 months, if we can develop this kind of agentic solution, then for sure we can go out and partner with kind of other agencies and other kind of creators, right? Because again, every single creator, every single influencer has the same problem of how do I drive traffic and attention to my business. And so once we kind of like solve this release this product for the OnlyFans sector, we can partner with agencies that obviously are all encountering the same problem, right? And again, we can repurpose this technology for the casino industry, right? To drive traffic to this AI casino industry and beyond, right? So that's in essence like building the product that can actually like spread the word about Lush is actually the best marketing plan going forward. You're not going to get there by minting NFT collections, paying KLs to shill. It's just not working. Utility of the Lush token. Again, staking and buyback. Yeah, that's our plan. Again, was to get the cash flow break even before we start kind of those things. Again, you have to keep in mind that startups remain unprofitable for like 5 to 10 years, right? Like our goal obviously is to get this. We've been around only for like a little bit over 1 year. If we can accomplish this in a year and a half to 2 years, obviously pushing for a year and a half, right? This is like a very significant milestone that should not be under appreciated, right? Because most startups like burn money for 10 years straight, right? And so once we can get to break even and profitable, then yeah, you can do staking, buybacks, and burns with kind of the proceeds of the business, right? But and like if we do that now, like it defeats the purpose, right? Like why would we use our own treasury to buy back the token? If our own treasury goes to zero and the business goes out of business, then the token is worth zero anyways, right? So like again, do not try to like I'm not a fan at all of forcing utility upon a token, right? Like there's no okay, so this is like obviously this is not a one-to-one comparison because I'm using an example of like a start like stock in like a startup like Uber, right? There is no use case. Like there's nothing you can do with like let's say you're owner of like shares in like freaking Airbnb Uber, right? There's nothing you can do with it except hold on to it. But like that doesn't mean it doesn't have value, right? It's just like so the bet, it's like again, this is an analogy using like stocks, right? Equity. In our case it's like tokens. But in a sense like you don't need to force like fake utility to drive in an attempt to drive kind of fake demand to try to like boost up the price, right? That's not just a waste of effort. That's also a waste of like attention and like just like engineering like efforts, right? To like do this stuff. It's completely useless. Like yeah, we can integrate kind of like staking like to like do a staking pool, one-sided staking pool where you stake the token, lock it up for like 6 months, get like 5% APR. But like, what is that actually going to like solve a long-term like product or problem? Like building a product that actually people use? No. So people are just going to dump those tokens once they get that yield, right? So that doesn't really solve any problems. And no one's doing that. Like these kind of DeFi Ponzi schemes, Ponzi yield schemes were like 2021, and no one's even doing that anymore. That has like no effect. It would be great if more people became aware of the Lush token. That is a natural extension, natural byproduct of actually building a product that people actually use. And so again, you can go out and like try to like shill like KOLs and stuff. I'm sorry, that just doesn't work. But if we can solve our own problem of how do we draw traffic for our own kind of influencers using this kind of agentic social media browser-based AI agent, and then we can repackage that for other industries, including the crypto industry, right? Crypto Twitter industry. Then that will, by extension, the product is the marketing, right? For how's the runway? Yeah, the runways. I mean, it's not great. Obviously, we like to have like millions of dollars in the bank, but in essence, like you don't really need that in the age of AI, right? Because like AI itself is ultimately like very deflationary, right? You don't need millions of dollars to build a product. If you do, you're probably doing something wrong. Right? This is for software specific, obviously. So our runway is like quite manageable. We can essentially, like I said, go a decent amount, 10 months, 12 months, 15 months, etc., without needing to raise external cash. So we're in a relatively good spot right now. Again, like the main point, the main goal right now is to get to break even, so we don't need to worry about the runway, right? Again, this is like awareness for the Lush token, utility of the Lush token. Well, those are two separate things. But like people become aware of Lush if we actually can build like products, right, that people use. And this agentic social media manager, I think, will be a game changer, assuming we can solve all the technical issues that I know we'll encounter. But again, our goal is to get it out in Q2. With that, it's been 40 minutes, so we're right on time. I'll open up to questions from the guys that are listening in. You can just feel free to like type it in the chat. I know Jeremy has typed in a couple already. Stay on for about 5 to 10 minutes more, answer questions. So feel free to type them if you have any. And appreciate you guys tuning in. Obviously, I know it's like a Sunday morning in the U.S., so most people I assume are probably like sleeping or like recovering from Saturday night. So appreciate you guys. For those of you that are tuned in, when will Instagram integration be made? So that's a very good question. So this kind of agentic social media manager product that we're developing is first going to be designed first going to be built for Instagram. And so you will be able, once that's released, you will be able to put in your login credentials, and then the AI will just work for you like 24/7 to engage with people, scrolling, browsing, targeting, relevant users in your, space. For example, OnlyFans, right? So this agent will be just working 24/7. And the thing is, like, again, like there's various kind of strategies. I know Jeremy was mentioning called like mother and slave, right? Or like essentially like people think you can only like run one Instagram like page, right? But actually, like the most kind of viral creators and most viral influencers have teams that are running like 10, hundreds, maybe even thousands of accounts. And so the whole kind of value proposition of this agentic social media manager is that it's, hyper scales your social media presence, right? Like if you were a human managing like 10 accounts is like unscalable, right? Like each account you have to like, like interact with people, post, etc. But like this kind of automation system with agentic capabilities is like as near infinitely scalable as you can get. And so like if you are managing your current account, for example, like Heidi, there's nothing stopping you from opening up um, 10 different, 10 additional Heidi accounts. They're all posting, right? Like one post multiplied by 10 by default just increases your reach, right? It's just a purely kind of volume and numbers game. Any other questions? Give it 2 more minutes. Well, let's call for questions. Okay, then we'll wrap it up here. I appreciate you guys. Like I said, for those of you guys that dropped in, I'll have this recording, hopefully processed by my audio recorder and uploaded to YouTube probably by like tomorrow, and I'll share it in our groups. So I appreciate you guys again for hopping in, and talk to you guys later in Discord and Telegram. All right, see you guys.